Welcome back to another Black City Coffee vlog. We are cupping today, the most fun day, where we get to see if any of our efforts made any sense. To catch you up, the first attempt had a very short middle phase. Second attempt had a longer middle phase. We're seeing if this is going to be more punchy in this aggressive style roast. And then with this one, we're going to see if you get more sweetness, if we even like this sweetness, if it's lost all of its complexity. A lot of the times when we step into the cupping room, we have assumptions, biases, and you can't help that because you're a little human, and that's what little humans do. So what we're gonna try to do is not be biased. It's not a blind cupping, I know what they are. We're just trying to assess what kind of profile we're gonna get to. It's important to kind of establish your goals for each cupping that you do. It could be for like, how's the best way possible to roast this? With also balancing, how is this coffee going to sell the best too, right? So if you're an artiste roaster, but also trying to like, you know, make some money, those two kind of clash in terms of where the ideas or where the philosophies are coming from. As a hobbyist roaster, I'm definitely trying to still balance both of that because I don't want to buy something, roast it, and be so niche about it that nobody buys it and then nobody gets to share or experience this kind of coffee because maybe they're turned off or it's just too woo-woo or whatever it is, right? So it's a weird kind of balance. I don't know. How do you guys handle it? It's been 2 days. They're naturals. This is what's going to replace our other African coffee. I'll be taking notes and then maybe do some like intuitive scoring at the end. It's lively, it's kind of green. Active is kind of coming to my mind. Wow. Now, I think it's important during this cupping is like to illustrate like this weight loss that is experienced my first attempt was 13%. The second attempt was a 13.5, a half a percent over. But in coffee, it kind of makes a big difference. And I'm already smelling the difference. This is more lively, green, raw, on the vegetal side. I'm not saying that these are all bad or defective smells, but when you start trying to tell the difference between one coffee to the next with such a minute difference, those are the types of things that you start to pick up just in the fragrance alone, you know? So we can say that this is livelier, active, raw, green, vegetal, I don't know, brighter in a way, right? Versus this, you know? I think a lot of times, like when I'm cupping, I have to put myself in a vacuum, like not, you know, not raw, like raw vegetables, but like in this context, you know. A lot of times it's like when you're at the cupping table, that's a vacuum. Like you can't really be influenced, try not to be influenced by what those words mean in other contexts. So it's within this context, within this little vacuum. You know, I'm talking about the cupping table in particular, this one, and then making comparisons because the differences are so minute. You know what I mean? You're really splitting hairs. So how do we tell the difference? Well, we start really looking within this fine line. It's like when you're assessing something and there's this scale, right? Well, we have all this to kind of like choose from or pick out or, you know, verbalize. But we need to cut out all that stuff to this tiny little sliver that is your particular cupping table and context and everything that kind of went into that. It's a very, very anecdotal sort of sample, right? Which kind of makes it fun. Hopefully it's fun for you. Heavier, sweeter, maltier, right? So for me, that's just a reinforcement of kind of like what I already had thinking coming in. It's 0.5 more roasted than this one. So the smell makes sense to me. And so those are things that just sort of back up and validate all these little thought processes that are going on in your head as you start to categorize and start to assess and judge the coffee that's in front of you within this vacuum. Oh. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have this nice fast pour kettle this time. Doing it the right way. So we'll let these brew for 4 minutes. We'll come back and we're gonna cup. Okay. Boop. And there you go. Okay, so on the break on the second attempt, it was quite a bit more depth of smells going on. That's like, whereas the first attempt was a little bit like kind of one note when I broke the crust and was smelling. It still smelled good, but then when I compared it, I was able to compare it. I was like, huh, something's deeper, more layered or something going on with the second one. And I think that's okay, like especially being a hobbyist or just doing this at home or just freaking learning. It's like, I think it's okay to just be like, I don't know why, but it's different. And you could write that down and you could be like, I don't know why, but it's different. And then maybe later on in your journey as a roaster, as a cupper, you'll maybe figure that reason out, or it'll stick in your mind, like sometimes these things often do. And then you'll be like, huh, I wonder why. And then, you know, it'll just kind of like egg you on in your learning process. And then you may find the answer. And when you do, it's gonna be so satisfying. It's like a little puzzle, you know, that you got to solve. Versus like somebody just telling you, you could always do that. But I kind of like the challenge of being stumped by something and going, huh, I don't know, man. Stick a pen in it for now. And then I go through the motions or whatever, and then it'll pop back in my mind again. I'll be like, huh, is that why it tasted all one note or boring? Or is that why that was super layered and stuff? And it's more fun that way. I don't know, just me. So we let these guys cool, get them down to 5 minutes. And then we got 2 minutes left here. Well, let's cup, let's taste, let's talk about it. Meanwhile, I got these 2 new samples in. I roasted them on the Ikawa. They're ready to go. I'm excited. They're kind of like another rendition of Mr. Pablo, one of my favorite coffees that I've had in here from Colombia. A very experimental, categorized as experimental in the processing department, where they ferment these cherries in a drum, and then they put pressure on it for like a number of hours, and then they take them out and then process them. And you could do a couple of ways. You could natural process them further. You could honey process them after this interesting experimental, you know, fermentation kind of processing in drums and such. And yeah, we're just gonna see. So he had 2 of a similar from the same farm but different varietals, and then again different processing. They look exactly the same, the green. I'm excited, but again, they're naturals. Well, I'm gonna treat them like naturals, even though they're this like experimental thing. All right, let's give these a whirl. Okay, from the get, still kind of hot, right? Big black tea note. Reminds me of that geisha that I roasted. That tea note is really strong. Still a little hot, I think, right now, to kind of like, there's a nice dark red wine note. I just spent my time at this awesome place called Hopper and Burr. It's natural wines, it's coffee, with my sister the other day, and they had so many, like all they sell is natural wine. If you haven't heard of natural wine, check it out. If you're into this like fermentation, high acidity stuff, check that out. Like if you can find one, try to get like a flight, try to do this and that. This is reminiscent of like the Merlots that they turn into rosés. like they turn Cabernet Sauvignons into rosés, right? Where they do that kind of thing. And because there's a depth of flavor to it, but then it's also elevated by that fermentation note. Does that make sense? This really short middle phase is sharp, is harsh in a way where I think it could bother some people. I like it a lot. But again, we just talked about like roasting for something so niche or roasting so personally where you kind of alienate the rest of your market. So if you're like a ambitious, loving, acidity lover like myself, then I think you would go for this, even though it's kind of sharp. I think with a couple more days rest too, just like that Tiger Mountain and a lot of naturals in general, they generally benefit from resting. So I could just be tasting this off of 2 days rest, whereas maybe I can wait 3 or 4 days rest, you know, and cup it then. Yeah, because it seems to have mellowed out here. The sweetness is more round here with this middle phase being just rounded out, you know, instead of the sharp edges of this and being very like contemporary and modern, this is more rounded out and traditional. But that big black tea note is really quite strong, which I love. It's so good. It's that astringentness, you know. The fruits that are there is like a pomelo, like a grapefruit. It's like a rosé, merlot, but a merlot. Meaning, you know, a rosé is generally really light, just a brisk sort of thing, you know, bleeding, where what I'm talking about has some weight, has some body in it. Wow. This Burundi is a deal. That's what I was talking about like in the first video. I was like, dude, I think I found a deal. Whereas if we just chase the name, if we just chase the origin, Geisha, Colombia, Africa, Ethiopia, like this, if we just chase the names that we know or that are popular, I think we miss out on the nuance of like freaking Burundi. Like Burundi is not popular because I think people can't really like, maybe they don't have a lot of association with it, or they just haven't seen it enough, or not a lot of people haven't seen it enough. And like Ethiopia, I feel like it gets all the attention, which rightly so, right? Like Ethiopia's a great green, friggin' birthplace of coffee and all that stuff, right? Like they have this great story, whereas Burundi maybe doesn't have a great marketing story like that. So sometimes it's like, in those cases, good things can kind of get left behind or overlooked. But wow. Or there's a very just real possibility that I've just roasted this better. Or because I'm an aggressive style roaster, this kind of green suits me as a roaster. Because I will not sit here and be like, I'm the best roaster and now I roast all these different types of coffees and now I can judge. It's like, it's kind of like, this is how I roast. The coffee turns out this way, and and maybe because the green is so good, it can withstand my aggressive style roast, that it's still showing so much really like depth of character and flavor. So there's always that possibility. Not necessarily because I know how to roast every single coffee and origin and process and all that stuff. That's definitely not the case. Great acidity in both. But now let's see if I can just freaking tell the difference. I don't know if I can. The flavors are the same for me. The only difference that I can tell right now at 13 minutes in is this has more body, more mouthfeel, lingers longer. I feel like the oils and the remnants of coffee left in my mouth linger there longer. Whereas this is sort of fleeting. It's quicker. It's thinner in its composition, like in its viscosity. It's thinner, definitely more lively, and definitely the sharpness is there. And when I say sharp, how can I say it? It kind of like bites back. Ooh. Ooh, it bites back. Whereas this one, it's like kind of like giving you a hug. sweeter, right? Rounder. And that is a difference of 0.5%. Can you believe that? And, you know, of course, again, of the shorter middle phase to the more standard middle phase. So obviously, I think this is going to be more the speed of most of the people who buy from me. I don't think a lot of people for me are very like, you know, super picky and like want to go for the big acidity, big, you know, big lively acidic cups. That's really just me. And then I have to sort of like dilute that for the masses, because I get it. It's like, it's so niche, and I'm not at the point where I can just offer niche coffee. Like say Onyx is my favorite example. Very niche coffee, right? Very specific in who they're targeting. So yeah, we're gonna go with something like this in this profile. Maybe I can tighten up the middle phase just a little bit. I will do one more test, and you know, it'll probably happen by accident, not on purpose. I'll probably be like, oh, I'm not paying attention, and maybe the heat will go a little longer, but I'm happy like this green can take that sort of like treatment, you know, can take the heat. I would still call this a light roast for sure. This is lighter than a city, not cinnamon. Maybe it is, I don't know. I've never really like categorized something officially as cinnamon. I don't think it's light enough viscosity wise to be cinnamon. So maybe this is my city, maybe this is my city plus. I don't know. It's hard when you just like, you know, you're just, everything is manual. So there's no notches to go to. Everything is just fluid, right? But yeah, that was really fun. This is an excellent coffee. Now, what would I score this? Jared scored this 85.5. I think I would be much more generous. Because it's beating that geisha, it's like, it gets points for that. That's not even on the category. It's like, are you even better than like a geisha? I like it better, honestly. Solid. Exciting. Lively. This is me just trying to persuade everybody to try my taste. That's my ego talking. So if we kill our ego, I think this is what people are gonna kind of lean towards, and then maybe even ask me for sure. For sure they're gonna ask me, Meg, can you make this a little more medium? And I'll be happy to oblige. Just put it in the seller notes. You can always let me know how you like it, okay? Because taste is subjective, and that's okay with me. All right, I love it. It's got this wine, black tea note, a Merlot rosé, if I should be so bold. Just because I have a lot of, I drink a lot of like natural wines. Like this was one of them from Hopper and Burr that I picked up. 25 bones. It's a rosé. But yeah, look how dark this rosé is, right? I think in commercial wines for sure, like we're not seeing rosés like this color. And it's because they're leaving the skin on, they're processing it in a more natural way, which is really reminiscent. Well, actually, interesting fact. I don't know if this is like true to fact, but like coffee people like this Don Juan farmer, he's taking the practices of natural wine. This has been done since, I mean, this was the beginning when wine used to be processed this way since the beginning. And now they're kind of bringing that full circle back and then charging you an arm and a leg for it. Just like coffee. But that's how they've been processing it and been inspired and influenced this and bringing it to coffee. So like skin contact, fermentation, under pressure, things like that, right? Which is so cool. It's interesting. So if you dig the fermentation stuff, like definitely check out natural wines or places that sell natural wines. And like, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of a new thing, but not a lot of people know about natural wine or maybe even like it. It's very, I guess, like I say, niche. Here's another one, right? Another natural wine here. This is not a rosé. This is I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but a Gracciano. Anyway, it's by Swick, one of our favorite natural wine producers. Those vibes, natural wine vibes. And it's really tasting really nice as it cools. That's another sign to look for as well. Tasty. Wow. You know, this Burundi, I didn't score it. Let's intuitively score it. Because it's better than the Geisha, which scored what? 87. 87.5 or something, Jared, right? I think you were generous, or you roasted it. I didn't roast it as well as you did, obviously. That goes without saying. But I think the quality of this green, even how much like such a novice I am with it, it beats that geisha in those ways. It beats it in that it's cheaper. It beats it in that it's got this really nice depth of flavor and this like incredible black tea note and this Merlot rosé thing going on, natural wine thing going on. I'm scoring it 88. 88. 88.25 because I'm generally more generous on the my scoring. Wow. And what a standout green to like put it through a roaster with so much heat, so much power, you know, not a gentle touch was laid upon this coffee, and it's like still so good and not tipped at all. So like as a roaster, like how easy is this to roast? Easy. You just need a roaster with power, with a lot of power. So like I wouldn't recommend it if you have a hot top. I don't think you're gonna get that type of heat responsiveness, right? So like I said, I was kind of intimidated by this coffee because with my little hot top, I don't feel like you could generate enough heat. Like it needs that heat. It craves that heat, I think, which is so cool. Because that's how I roast, with a lot of heat with my little nugget. Wow, I am blown away. My intuitive score is 88. Should I say 2.5? I don't know what that 2.5 would be, just because it beats the geisha. That was my 2.5. I love an underdog story, so. Wow, Burundi. A year old too, you know? Really tasty, really nice coffee. Maybe I should have bought a whole bag of this. All right, that was fun. That was really fun. Look forward to this. This new coffee will be announced next week when I really just iron out all the details, but I'm really excited to launch this new coffee. We're already into this week, so what am I saying? Maybe by the end of the week, we'll have it rolling out on the website where you can try it and you can see where I finally landed with the profile and everything. I'll do maybe a couple more roasts as well here. Yeah. Exciting. We'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.